Welcome and good afternoon, everyone, for attending this webinar. The Fortune Society celebrates this year's Digital Inclusion Week by bringing you today's webinar titled Bridging the Gap, Unlocking Digital Life Skills for the Justice Impacted Community. My name is Reggie Chapman. I am the Director of Policy at Fortune Society's David Rothenberg Center for Public Policy and your moderator for today's webinar. This webinar is brought to you by Fortune's Digital Equity Program, its David Rothenberg Center for Public Policy, and its DEI Committee. The Digital Equity Program's mission is to provide our participants with technical support, knowledge, resources, and training to navigate the digital world. It does this by offering digital classes, connecting students to free equipment, and opportunities to put those skills to immediate use. The David Rothenberg Center for Public Policy supports initiatives, policies, and laws that promote a fairer legal system, benefit justice-impacted individuals, and increase formerly incarcerated individuals' chances of successful reentry. The DI Committee aims to nurture a culture of belonging and address issues that impact the organization's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially among people from marginalized communities. Each year, these departments work on various projects to help justice-impacted people and marginalized communities. And today's webinar is one of those events. The Fortune Society will also record a version of this on its webinar, on its website, and YouTube. And so, please make sure to subscribe and follow our social media accounts. Following the background and objective portions of this webinar, we will learn more from our panelists in the Q&A session. We will also follow this Q&A session with the Q&A session with the audience. So let's begin. Digital Inclusion Week began back in 2017. And every year since, for 1 week in October, organizations and individuals across the country celebrate Digital Inclusion Week. During this time, we hold events to bring awareness and recognition to the issue of digital inclusion and develop solutions to bridge the digital divide. Digital inclusion is the process of ensuring that disadvantaged people have access to information and communication technologies. These things include affordable and adequate internet services, devices that meet users' needs, digital literacy training, and apps and online content that encourages self-sufficiency, participation, and collaboration. It is also important that we understand as technology advances, and advance it will, that digital inclusion framework must also evolve. So this requires that we implement strategies and investments to eliminate historical, institutional, and structural barriers to technology. If we are able to do this, we hope that this will lead us down the pathway towards digital equity, which is our ultimate goal. The objective of this webinar is to bring awareness to digital inclusion supporters that there's an aspect of digital inclusion that we need to strengthen in order to improve formerly incarcerated individuals' ability to adapt to the digital world. Now, many programs seek to help formerly incarcerated individuals adjust to the digital world, only provide them with workforce development skills. These skills include creating simple Word or Google documents, emails, spreadsheets, and Zoom and team meetings. While these skills are important, it is just as, if not even more important that they also develop what we call digital life skills. By digital life skills, we mean that they can be related to employment, but they are not solely related to employment. We are simply skills that provide them with the ability to navigate life every day. Some examples of these include skills, the ability to use public benefits, telehealth, using QR codes and tap and go, self-checkout, paying bills and using banking systems, and even using Google Maps to navigate mass transit. And so when we think about how imperative it is for formerly incarcerated people to have these skills, we understand that digital life skills not only make their workforce development training that much more effective, but ultimately, these skills will help them be effective participants in the digital world. In discussing these things with our panelists, among many things, this webinar hopes to identify pre- and post-release solutions to help formerly incarcerated individuals achieve these goals. With that said, let's introduce our panelists. First, we have Mr. LaRon Rogers.
Good afternoon. LaRon Rogers, Program Director Outreach for Atlas Hope, a new initiative under the Fortune Society. I'm formerly incarcerated. I served 24 and a half years in New York State prisons. Ready.
Next, we have Ms. Diafera.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leah Faria. I am the Director of Community Engagement for the Women's Community Justice Association, and I'm also justice impacted. I served 22 and a half years in a state correctional facility, and I'm happy to be here.
And next, we have Mr. Henry Cassie. You're muted, Mr. Cassie.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Henry Cassie. Right now, currently, I'm an intern for the Bloomberg Corporation. My role is employment operations, pretty much IT work, servicing everybody in the building to make sure everything is running smoothly. I myself am a formerly incarcerated individual. As of May 16th of this year, I just returned back to my community after doing 25 years in prison for a crime that I didn't commit. And I pray that my story and my testimony can help somebody realize that if you can believe it, you can achieve it. That's pretty much the concept here at the Bloomberg Corporation. You know, they really feel that if you can dream something, you can, and you put in the work, you can make it happen. And I pray that you know, my story is a living proof of that, and you know, help somebody else to get on the right path. Thank you.
Next, we have Minerva Cancel.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Minerva Cancel. I'm currently an intern here at Fortune Society as a recovery coach. I just love helping formerly incarcerated people with digital skills. It helps a lot of people just go further in life. So I enjoy what I do.
Thank you, Minerva. We will also have later, we will have Assemblyman Clyde Vanell joining us shortly. He'll be joining us at a certain portion during this webinar. So we look forward to having him speak as well concerning this issue. So now that we've met our panelists, let's start out by asking them several questions. So our first panelist up will be Mr. Rogers. So I guess my first question for you, Mr. Rogers, is that in what ways did this new digital society challenge you when you were released from prison? You also said that you served 24 years in prison, which appears to be a lengthy sentence. So I'm kind of interested in seeing or hearing from you about how did this new digital society challenge you, and in what ways did it challenge you?
In every way imaginable. So just a little brief background. I had somewhat of an advantage because while I was incarcerated, I was in college, so it gave me access to computers, and so I knew my way around the computer a little bit. They, you know, the systems that they use is outdated. But coming home, of course, my biggest challenge was the cell phone. I didn't know how to work the cell phone, so I'll give you a list of things that I struggled with: cell phone, the Metro card machine in the train station. That was like a real big like hurdle for me. I was standing there looking at it, and it was like I was looking at something with hieroglyphics on it because I didn't know what I was supposed to do. And it was somebody, a guy walked, I guess he must have did time before, and because, you know, he's like, "Oh, you need help?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he showed me, literally took the time and showed me how to order the Metro card, explained to me if when I wanted to re-up the money on a card, how to do it. I guess first time going out to a restaurant, waiting for the waitress to bring a menu, not knowing that the QR code that was on the table, I was supposed to scan it. I didn't know how to scan to get the menu. It was so many different things. But the cell phone for me, the biggest challenge was like asking people how to use it, and for them not understanding or realizing that when I went to prison, I had a flip phone, a Motorola flip phone. There was no such thing as smartphones, touchscreen, none of that. It's like asking if you have anybody have children, you know, asking a 20-year, 18-year-old if you know what a rotary phone is, right? And how if they know how to use a rotary phone. Most young people don't know how to use it, and I was the same way coming out of prison. People who spend an extended amount of time in prison have a big a tough time adjusting to everything being automated, self-checkout, going to the grocery store and seeing and not knowing how to do it, not knowing how to pay for it, looking for where you put the money at or the credit card or things of that nature. Again, like I said, I was fortunate. We created a community inside that would help welcome me when I came home. So I had people that I could lean on, who I could call in, who was, literally took the time to explain things to me like they was explaining it to a baby, because all of it is new. Like, being out here, people don't realize how hard it is to ask, you 40-something years old and asking someone, how do you turn the phone on? How do you get in it? How do you go to an app? How do you do things that, young people could do every day, and you don't know the first thing about it. And sometimes that can strain relationships. It does something for your self-confidence. And, we come home and you have to realize that you don't have felon written across your forehead. So there's a lot of things that you struggle with, that just in the day-to-day life, that these hurdles create more of a challenge with integrating back into society, if that kind of answers the question.
No, that was a great response. I appreciate you sharing that with us, Mr. Henry. You said a lot there, and
Mhm.
some of the things are very, very important. And you mentioned about you being in college while you were incarcerated, how that
Mhm.
kind of gave you a competitive advantage, if you may speak, when you came home. But even still, you face challenges. And you also mentioned about this community being able to welcome you when you came home. So I
Mhm.
think that just speaks to some of the other questions we're going to have for this panel later, concerning like preparation for release. And so
Mhm.
I think you said something's very vital in that, and I just very much appreciate what you said to us. And I guess my next question for you, because you said a lot, and there's a lot to tease out about that, Mr. Rogers. But I guess my next question for you would be, how did all these things make you feel, and then how did like these feelings influence your behavior?
Um, it was tough. Sometimes it was a sense of, like, I don't know if shame is the correct description, because you become self-conscious of you not knowing something. And you could be, if you're out in a crowded place and you have to ask somebody how to do something that everybody else know how to do it, then you have everybody looking at you. You feel like, oh, they know I was in prison, or they looking at you like, why doesn't he know how to do that? So I think that it does internally for each individual, everyone. So just briefly, a friend of mine came home Monday, and I picked him up, took him get a phone, and I was sitting there showing him how to use it. And he wasn't getting frustrated, but the first thing I told him, I said, listen, you're gonna have to take your time. When you ask somebody, you might not get the response that you want. You can always call me, and I'll explain it to you the best that I can. But while we together, I'm gonna show you how to do the things that you need to do, at least in the first couple of days. You'll get the hang of it. And I told him, when you got free time at night, whatever, just go on it. Don't push a lot of different buttons. Don't send no information, because I was making mistakes. I posted my social security number on Facebook, and yeah, and just so, but from not knowing, I posted the ID card they give you when you get released, not realizing that it had my social security number on it. I took a picture of it. I'm thinking I'm learning how to use Facebook. I posted it. I'm getting phone calls. They're like, yo, take that down. Your social security number. I'm like, I don't know how to take it down. So they, a friend of mine had to explain how to do those things. I think, um, like I said, the having the support network that I had coming home and trying to provide that to other people, it helped tremendously. My fear, and I feel for the men and women who are returning that don't have that support, that don't have people to sit there and take their time and to understand where they're at in their learning of everything digital coming. So it's a mix of emotions that you go through. It could be anger, it could be, like I said, shame, fear. You pick up, you start to get afraid to ask somebody something, because you're afraid of their response or how it makes you feel. And then it's just things that a process that it's already uncomfortable with coming home. It's like system overload. The world is moving much faster than it was prior to you going to prison. You come home, things look different. Places that you remember, they're no longer there. Everything is different. So everything you're learning, new things, new smell, new foods, all of these things, and then to that's another learning process that you have to go through. And so yeah, it's just a roller coaster of emotions, some good, some bad.
Well, yeah, listen, you said a lot right there. And I think like what you said actually covers some of the themes that we want to cover in this webinar. That's why what you said was so powerful, Mr. Rogers, and we appreciate you so much. But we're gonna have to get to our next panelist. But I do want to mention you said a few things that are very important. Again, having support prior to you coming home, and then you being that support system for other formerly incarcerated people. You also mentioned something about something you did, which posting your social security number, on social media. And that speaks to another issue that we try to address here with digital equity program here at Fortune, is that this idea of cybersecurity. That's very important. And we think about security issues, how vulnerable formerly incarcerated people can be to that. And it really speaks to an issue of, public safety. This is the issue of public safety. And so hopefully this is going to be a question that we get into a little bit deeper. And again, we're going to have a public official a little bit later during this panel. But again, I thank you for what you just said, and you've already contributed a lot to this webinar. And so with that being said, I think we're going to our next panelist, Leah.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Ms. Leah. So I have an interesting question for you. I know that you're a woman, and you as you stated, you did a substantial amount of time as well. And so I guess one of the questions I want to ask you concerns, the different genders, how this experience may have affected, different genders, because we oftentimes we think it affects people all the same, and sometimes that's just not the case. And so I guess my question for you, Leah, is that do you think that the challenges differ between men and women?
Absolutely. I just want to first acknowledge the fact that both men and women do experience challenges when it comes to digital literacy. But for women, it's just on a different level, because you have especially with the societal expectations, you have the gender roles that that come into play. And when you look at trying to obtain employment, right? You have like whether it's employment, whether it's medical, whether it's reentry resources, you still have to look at the fact that the world is evolving into like the digital platforms. So, if you're thinking about coming home and trying to reestablish relationships with your family, right? Or children, now you have to like navigate certain parental classes online, right? You have to, your court dates might be online, and you actually at a disadvantage because you don't know how to navigate the system. When it comes to employment opportunities, whereas a male, right, could go and get into like the construction field or just like manual labor, when it comes to women have to at least have the basic digital life skills to be able to navigate, right, the software, to be able to even apply online, right? Because you're not going into, forget after COVID, right? But you're not even going into the establishments to apply. Everything is online. Like LaRon said, it's a QR code for this, a QR code for that. So you have to be able to have these basic digital life skills just to be able to branch out. And then when you talk about women and reentry resources, you really don't have that many options when it comes to resources available to women when they reintegrate into society. A lot of times it's just like he said, right? You have the community that you was a part of on the inside who welcome you and support you as you reintegrate on the outside. So that's where that is. But, I feel like the purpose for the webinar is to educate the masses, right? So that we can have more reinvestments or investments in the community to welcome, the women, the men, gender expansive populations coming home. But that's where the lack is, right? And women definitely have challenges, right? When it comes to reentry programs, you have trauma informed programs that we need. We need parenting programs, right? We need counseling, right? Mental health counseling, so that we can evolve into our best selves, right? So the challenges are different. Because oftentimes, yes, we are the caregivers, the nurturers, whether it's for children, whether it's for adults, our parents, et cetera, et cetera. But, we need to look at that, right? And we need to make sure that the resources are available for, women coming out, right? The mothers, the daughters, the sisters coming out from, prison systems that want to be better people, that want to reintegrate, reestablish, relationships with their children, family, and even the community.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you. You said a lot, and I appreciate it. I want to get into this because, I've been like researching this issue, and obviously I'm the moderator for this issue, and I thought I knew a lot, but like you just enlightened us about something that I never really thought about, and I want to make sure I heard you correctly. You mentioned how important it is for a woman specifically, and it's something I kind of teased out from what you said. It may have not been what you said, but it's something that I thought about when you were speaking, basically that in the competitive job market, because men have access to different types of revenue streams such as construction and different type of jobs, that for women, because they tend to go into certain jobs that require digital life skills, then the competitive market, it may be more difficult for them, and that's more challenging for women. I never thought about that bias, and that's incredible when you think about that. And now we're kind of teasing into several things you said about like the mental health portion of it, how it makes one feel, and then the other things that a woman may have to do to take care of a family. And I just thought that was amazing that you made that point, and I just thank you for informing us about that. Um, and also, and we understand that, historically and even now, although we see an increase in rates of incarcerated women, that because historically men were incarcerated at a higher rate than women, then we have more resources available for women. I mean, for men, excuse me. And so that's problematic. And I think that we need to get ahead of that. And I'm so glad that you came to speak about that. And I think that's very important for us. So thank you for providing that. And I guess my second question for you, Leah, I have a follow-up question for you. Do you think that providing formerly incarcerated people, men or women, with digital life skills plays into the overall betterment for society? And matter of fact, I'll kind of reframe it. How about this? Same question. Does it play into the better overall betterment for society? But for which groups and how? For definitely for both groups, but how for each group, if you can elaborate.
Well, I think to kind of put the groups together at first, I would say that definitely when we always, you always hear the saying of, oh, public safety, right? Well, you can't really expect people to come out wanting them to do better if they're not equipped with the skills and the knowledge and the tools to do better, right? So having these digital life skills afforded, right, to an individual that's incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, whichever way you want to play it, is definitely going to, benefit public safety, benefit society, because it puts people at advantage to be able to be productive citizens, right? When it comes to housing, when it comes to employment, when it comes to education, right? These are the things that we try to, accomplish in our lifetime to be able to be productive members of society, to be, to have that financial stability in our lives. So I think that, it depends on what path you want to go, right? If you're looking at the males, it's not just limiting a male to hard labor, right? You have so much more. Look at Henry, right? Doing IT. Look at you, right? And this is the things, but it's setting people up to succeed rather than fail. So in that way, we could look at the recidivism rate going down. We could look at, more people being able to provide, for themselves, with housing, right? Or to be able to provide for their family. So now you have family reunification. So, it's like any way you want to look at it with the women, right? It sets us up because we're already coming out with a disadvantage in the job market with people competing with people who may not have a felony, right? So now it like puts us at an advantage so we can meet them where they at. Right, we can compete. Right, we want to be professionals in corporate America, or even in the nonprofit space. But it just gives us a better advantage, and being better allows us to do better, right? And we can pay it forward. So it's like more people are being impacted, less people are being a detriment to society. We look at like mental health, right? We talk about mental health, and that's a huge concern, right? But these are the things, if we have these resources available, right? Or we have people that look like us providing services for us, right, in these fields, and kind of like eliminate some of the barriers that they have in place for professions like this, then we could actually be able to provide more resources and support for the different fields, right? The different capacities and spaces that is needed. So
You said it the best, Leah. You said it the best. Thank you for informing us. I couldn't have said it any better. Yeah, definitely. And you also said something that I think was very powerful. concerning this idea of recidivism, how having these skills obviously allows us to be more competitive in the market and to get gainfully employed and provide for our families. And in that way, it kind of reduces the rate of recidivism. And for anyone who doesn't know what that term means, not the textbook version of it, but just for one reoffending, going back to prison. But when I think about that, I think it speaks to something a little bit more than recidivism. It's actually something that researchers are looking at currently, which is the idea of desistance, right? I think that it kind of allows people to desist from crime, to like not just not engage in crime, but actually build their life and go the other way. So it's more of a positive thing as opposed to looking at through a negative lens. To desist, meaning that to build life forward, to become a more productive and efficient member of society. And so, with that being said, I thank you for providing that testimony for us, and we appreciate it. Um, and just on time, we have one of our panelists just joined us, Assemblyman Clive Vanell, and I think you're right on time. And so we have a few questions for Assemblyman Vanell. If you would like to, Assemblyman Vanell, to kind of tell us about yourself, and then following that, we can ask you a few questions concerning this topic.
First of all, thank you for having me. Really excited about being here and participating with everyone here. Really excited and to work with Fortune Society, that we're working to make sure that we prepare our brothers and sisters to get back into society. My name is Clive Vanell, New York State Assembly member from the 33rd Assembly District in Queens. I'm the chair of the Subcommittee on Internet and New Technologies, and closing the digital divide, bridging the digital and economic gap is part of my life's work. As the chair of the subcommittee, we look very closely on making sure that people, especially people of color, are not only use technology in their day-to-day lives, but use that for economic empowerment and upliftment. So really excited about the work that you guys are doing, and really excited to be here because to talk about this topic and discussion.
Well, we appreciate you, Assemblyman, and we appreciate having you here, and we appreciate your expertise, and we hope to get a lot from you today, and I'm sure you're going to be able to help us do that. So I guess my first question for you, Assemblyman, is that have you had conversation, and you kind of mentioned it just briefly, so I'll just ask you the question formally. Have you had conversations with other public officials concerning the gap in digital life skills amongst particularly formerly incarcerated people? And if so, what was their level of awareness about this issue?
So great question, Reggie. So I've had many conversations about closing the bridging the digital divide, bridging the gap for people of color. And in particular, we've had some conversations about for folks that were formerly incarcerated, but reentry, but not enough conversation.
Okay, so great.
So first of all, think about this. There's a large gap. There's a large gap and large digital divide for people of color, right? And then that's something that we're fighting to make sure that we close that gap. We're fighting to make sure that people have access to good quality, affordable access to the internet. We're trying to make sure that people have the skills to be able to interact with this new digital age. We're trying to make sure that people have the access to the hardware. Now, on top of that, that's a fight to make sure that we close that gap. On top of that, that's why it's important that with the work that you guys are doing, that the conversation about folks that are re-entering society, that conversation is not elevated enough. That conversation is not on the forefront enough. That's why it's really important, when we talk about, bridging the digital divide, when we talk about all the stuff that we're doing, that we're trying to do in the government for technology, it's really important for your voices to be heard, to make sure that we fight for folks that are re-entering into society to be able to interact with society and with the economy. But this is a major fight that we're trying to do on the wider sense. So the fact that I was excited and enthused when I heard that the program that you guys have for the formerly incarcerated, to be able to make sure that they get access to these life skills, to the hardware, and to the knowledge to be able to do this. So it's really important that we have these conversations, that you have these conversations with the policymakers.
Yeah, appreciate that, Samima. You also said something within that, well, that kind of at the end of what you just said was very powerful about voices need to be heard, right? And so with that being said, I guess I'll kind of try to integrate that into my next question. Um, what do you think that New York State can do to help address this issue in terms of policy and practice?
Couple of things. First of all, it's great that you guys are having this webinar, right? So one of the first things is education, us even knowing that this is an issue, right? So if we don't even know that this is an issue, then this attention will not be had. And that's why it's great to be able to work with an organization such as this, that you guys are trusted in this space. But you guys have to make sure that the policymakers, the folks that are the decision makers, the lawmakers, the executives know the importance of making sure that making sure that the folks that you guys represent have access to have access to technology, have access to knowing how to transact with these technologies. I'm a little bit older than you, Reggie, but when I was growing up, in order for me to apply for a job, I would go to the mall and I would fill out job applications. Now that's not happening anymore. Now, in order for you to be able to fill out a job application, you got to have an email address. You have to go online. You have to blah, 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 blah. Right? Now, in order for you to go to DMV, you have to, use your phone and swipe, download a QR code. And so it's really important for us to realize and understand that. But guess what, Reggie? Who's doing that? That's government doing a lot of that stuff, right? Government, we are putting a lot of our services online, right? So we are putting more and more services online, which to make it more convenient. And that makes it more convenient. But to some, it does not. And so what we have to recognize is that there are people that are adversely impacted by this advance in technology, and that if as fast as it moves, and it moves really fast, as fast as it moves, we are going to get left behind even furthermore. And what's really important is for our brothers and sisters that are re-entering into society, we have to make sure that, keep in mind, they're re-entering to society. Imagine how much things advance when some folks come back. So it's even harder work to make sure that, the work to be able to do that is really important. And when I talk about this, I don't want to talk about this like it's something up here. We're not talking about people becoming software engineers. We're not talking, some will, but we're not talking about people becoming software engineers or network data specialists. We're talking about, we could talk something as simple as understanding, we talked about this before, understanding your social media and online reputation, understanding that you need a professional email, understanding how to communicate on email, understanding how to communicate professionally online and on social media, understanding that you have a reputation online that you have to make sure that you manage, understanding how to be able to to correspond with folks, understanding how to even communicate on video conferencing tools. So there's so many different ways to do that. One last thing, sometimes your interview might be via video conference, right? So how do you show up professionally on the video? How do you make sure you communicate that well? And I was really impressed by some of the programs that you guys have been doing to make sure that you provide this work. I was really impressed the fact that you guys even do this work. I'm really excited that this is even on your radar screen. I went to a program, and I know I'm going on and on and on, but this is the last thing for real. I went to a program, upstate with many of the, and a couple of programs with many of the people that provide digital services training for folks and in the technology space. I was so happy to see you guys there in the middle of it, making sure that our folks are not forgotten, and that's really important.
Thank you, Samim and Vanessa. So you said a lot there, a lot of powerful things, a lot of informative things, and I'm glad our audience is here to hear you speak and to know that, our public officials are doing some things to engage this process. But I have a question for you. So you spoke about a few things you said. You spoke about education. I believe you implied that they need to be a little bit more educated concerning the topic. And you kind of hinted at the idea that there's a level of political will because you hinted at some of the things that are already being done are done by the state. And we appreciate that. So I guess in a nutshell, are you suggesting that, we need to do more to inform them concerning the nuances of justice impact the people and and um this idea of this I think it's the state's digital equity plan. Are you aware of that, and could we like kind of like bring that into the fold as it pertains to helping formerly incarcerated people increase their digital skills?
I don't know how to put, how for me to say this more plain. We need to hear from you. It's really important for us to hear from you. It's really important, when we're in Albany, we hear from so many different groups, so many different types of folks all the time. Our job, I'm a public official. We have a really big budget, right? I mean, over $200 billion. We put that money to a lot of different places. And we hear from so many different people. I chair the subcommittee on internet and new technologies, and I don't hear enough about this constituency. I don't hear enough about this constituency when it comes to technology. The governor just gave billions of dollars to something called Empire AI. Really great, talking about the new where AI is going or what have you. Nothing in there about closing the digital divide. Nothing in there about folks of color. Nothing in there about justice impacted folks. So what's really important is I think that's important for is that you guys need to be a fixture before us when we come to talk about what we're doing with technology training, what we're doing with job training, what we're doing with life skills training in the digital space. It's really important. It's really important that happens. It's really important that we understand that, not just me, all of us, that we understand that this is a constituency that needs it, maybe more so than many other folks, right? So and what happens is that, again, it makes good sense, because if you can properly transact in the online world, in this digital age, you can get a job, you can you can command more money, you can pay. And look, with the government, we want taxes, we want your money. You can work so we can get taxes, so we can get the money. So so again, and what does that mean? Does that mean we're only interested in one thing? It's great if you know our interest and we know your interest, and it works for everybody, right? So we want productive citizens to be able to produce so that it can be good for everybody. And I think that's good for everybody. To me, these kind of programs are not a handout. It's a hand up, right? It's a hand up. And we want to make sure that people are able to do well, feed themselves, feed their families, and do well in the world. And that's what it is. This is a hand up process. And we want to make sure that if we hear from you guys, we can make sure that we probably advocate and know what's going on.
Well, Senator Vanell, I thank you. I think that was amazing. You educated everyone on this webinar, and that's what we need. We need education. I think that a lot of the things you said in speaking just now has been able to empower the demos, and I think that's important for us here. And I'm glad you've been able to speak about it. So everyone that's listening, everyone that's involved in this webinar, we're going to heed to what you said, Senator Vanell, and thank you for providing us with that insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work that you do. So that means we have a lot of work to do. Our session starts in January. Hope to see you guys in Albany. next year. And, let's make sure we take care of those that we represent.
You definitely see fortune there. You definitely see fortune there. Make no mistake about that. All right. Thank you, Mr. Bennell. Are we going on to our next panelist who will be speaking? Our next panelist, Mr. Henry Cassie. How you doing, Mr. Cassie?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Great. Nice to meet you. You spoke earlier and you kind of told the audience a bit about yourself, that you served a substantial amount of time and you're innocent of that crime. So, you lost a lot. You lost a lot just by being incarcerated, and it's definitely an injustice to you. And so I can imagine that in addition to the other people who spoke in here about their challenges with digital literacy, you've also had an emotional, it's been very emotional for you going down this pathway. So I have several questions for you concerning your entry process as it pertains to digital equity. So did you have problems accessing benefits and navigating the city when you returned home from prison?
As far as the navigating of the city, thank God for Google Maps. I had to learn how to use Google Maps. One of the things that we're speaking about, digital literacy, making that transition, I should say, from incarceration to living in society. Navigating was a bit rough at first until I learned how to use the phone. And like I said, I got locked up in 1999. Like the last cell phone that I used before May of this year was the Motorola flip phone with the one you flip up with the little rubber antenna and all and everything. That's how long it's been, So I've heard other people's testimonies concerning, making that transition. I don't want to seem redundant, but definitely navigating through the city was a learning process, with me being gone for so long. The good news is the train stations haven't changed, but the things around them and outside of them definitely have over the years, so to speak. But yeah, it was rough. I think one thing that men and women coming home from lengthy periods of incarceration are going to have to really learn how to use is that phone. Like I'm still learning how to use that phone to this day, and I've been out for like going on 6 months now, and I realized that I had to learn being incorporated into this digital world that everything runs from your phone. Like people run their businesses, from their phone. Social media accounts, everything is from their phone. So my advice to any man or woman that's returning to society after a lengthy period is that you got to learn that phone. You got to learn that phone.
Thank you. You mentioned you're talking about navigating the city in Google Maps. Who taught you how to use Google Maps?
Google did. My daughter taught me on my way when I first coming back to society. She said, "Dad, if you have any trouble, just put it in Google. The filters pick up everything. You know what I mean." So I just had to learn how to use the new software that was available to me upon returning.
So I guess got Mr. Henry.
One thing I can say about this whole digital literacy issue is like I said, I don't want to sound monotonous, but I was fortunate, as Brother Rogers spoke on earlier, of being able to, go to college, and pursue my education, while on the inside. I was at Sing Sing Correctional Facility. Sing Sing, the population is only 1,700 people. Well, I shouldn't say only 100, that's a big population. But out of those 17, less than 500 of them are actually enrolled in college. That's less than a third of the population. I spent my last 6 years of incarceration at Sing Sing, going to Mercer University. I had access to the computer lab. I learned how to do Microsoft Office, Microsoft Word. I was just learning Excel and SPSS, upon me being released. With all that being said, even learning to use those skills on this side was a problem, was a science project to say the least. Because when I got home, I'm like, wait a minute, these computers don't look like the ones they got up in Sing Sing. The buttons is different. What's going on? And all that. So the reason why I'm saying all that is this: if it was difficult for brothers like myself and Brother Rogers, who had the benefit, who had the the fortune of being able to pursue their education, having access to a computer lab, having to learn software on the inside. If it was hard for us to make the transition, I can imagine my heart goes out to the thousands of men and women who aren't enrolled in college on the inside, who don't have the access to a little bit of things that we did. And I know that transition is probably going to be even rougher for them. So my goal here, while I'm here at Bloomberg, is like I said, when I learned about this corporation, they seriously focus on, dreaming big. If you can dream it and you're willing to put in the work, you can achieve it. I'm trying to use that philosophy and that mindset to help my brothers and sisters on the inside who I know are going to have a difficult time making that transition.
Right. So
Bloomberg Corporation, hold on,
Cass.
the Bloomberg Corporation is all about getting knowledge to the right people. That's what I want to do with this platform. Get the necessary digital literacy, get the necessary financial literacy to the disenfranchised, to the ones who are on the other end of the spectrum, who are in desperate need of those resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. No. Now I was just going to add to what you were saying. I think you kind of like went into it. You said things that are very, very important. So you talked about, because my second question for you kind of like welds well with you were just saying. So my question for you was like, what could have made your transition better in respect to having digital life skills prior to getting out, release, and what could society have done to better prepare you, society or an entity like Bloomberg or whoever it may be. When I say society, I just mean the collective whole. What could they have better done? And so, when you were speaking, you mentioned that you were part of a college program. While it didn't prepare you to a rate in which you would want to be prepared, it did give you some level of competitive advantage as pertains to other people who are similarly situated. So, with that being said, I guess my question for you, and you kind of reiterate, is that what do you think could have been afforded to you while you were incarcerated to better prepare you for the digital and because it's a two-pronged question, what could have society have done to better help facilitate that process when you did come home?
Well, I believe the answer to both questions is very simple. More options, more programming, more educational programs, more nonprofits like really committing, to the whole concept of prison reform and reformative justice. Like, we really need to get more people involved. Like I said, going to furthering your education and going to college in the penitentiary is limited to a certain group of individuals, and that's just because they just don't have the resources, they don't have the rooms, they don't have the teachers, the professors, to educate most of the population. Because I believe if they did, I'm still in contact with two professors, whose classes that I had when I was at Sing Sing. And our relationship just seems to grow, and our bond just seems to grow stronger every day. So there are people in the educational community who are committed, who are dedicated, to helping guys make that digital transition in terms of literacy. What has society done? Wow, that's a hard question. The reason why I say that is because I've been removed from society for such an extensive period of time. I'm just trying to check the temperature and get the vibe of the society that I'm in right now. And that in itself has been a process. But if I had to make one recommendation that society could do, is that I really believe in having more options. My father used to tell me the most dangerous man in the room is the one that has nothing to lose. You know what I mean? And I've learned from the experience that when the less options people have, the worse choices that they make. The more options that they have, the better choices that they make, because they're not just seeing inside the box. Now they're seeing the whole spectrum, because more resources and more opportunities have been presented to them. So I believe we really need we have to have a starting point, because I believe in solutions. I don't believe in just theories and concepts. And that's just me from what I've been through in my personal experience. But we need to have a starting point, you know what I mean? If we just pick one facility, or if we just focus on maximum security or minimum security, or adolescents to the age of 30, we really need to get a starting point, because I'm hearing all these ideas about how we're going to make this digital literacy transition work, but we really need to have a starting point. And I believe that, a panel should be put together. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, this has to be a panel of people that work in DOC as well, because we're going to need their cooperations to make these programs come to reality. But to just really focus on, getting a starting point, implementing the programs needed, you know what I'm saying, to get the population as digital literate as possible, and then let it go from there, because I believe in the domino effect. I've seen it happen before.
Well, thank you, Mr. Henry, for providing that insight. And I think, I know you, when I initially asked you the question, you said it was hard to answer, but I think as you went on, you kind of gave us some strings that we can kind of latch onto and kind of coming up with a solution. Like you mentioned earlier about more nonprofits getting involved. And so inside, but I know that these same nonprofits, they not only do work on the inside, they do work on the outside, such as Fortune. So what I gathered from what you said, it could be possibly, nonprofits like Fortune getting together and other nonprofits getting together and trying to come up with some solutions and doing what Senator Vanell said, making our voices be heard, coming up with concrete plans and making sure that public officials are held responsible, that they're able to provide the resources and bring the community together. I thank you for providing that insight to me, Mr. Cassidy. It was great insight. So thank you. Thank you, sir. So now we're going to go on to our next panelist, Ms. Minerva Cancel.
Yes. Hello.
Okay, how you doing? Nice to meet you. So
I'm good.
it's been a long webinar. So you spoke earlier about who you are, and how you got connected to it, to this issue. So if you could, before I ask you this question, could you just kind of give a brief little synopsis about yourself and how you came to be, so that our viewers will know who you are?
Yes, so my name is Minerva, and I am from the Bronx, born and raised. And I would say that I've been through a rough time and stuck in society where like there was no growth, because I stood in a cycle in my community where everybody was just doing the same thing over the years, over more than a decade. So I felt like stuck where I I felt like a teenager still, even though I was still getting older. So um I started kind of like exploring more and stepping out of my comfort zone. And then I came across like Fortune Society, and I started learning more, discovering new things that I enjoy doing, helping incarcerated people, and just honestly the digital life. I've been learning even more than what I knew, because growing up I also helped a lot of people, since I was raised by my grandparents that didn't know how to read or write and didn't know anything about technology. So growing up, I did help a lot of people with digital. Up to this day, I still help people on the train stations with the machines refilling their Metro cards. Um, and in general, even making an email here at Fortune, I help a lot of people. And I just love making people happy. I don't want people to feel like, insecure and not wanting to use their voice to ask for help because of how other people might might make them feel. But I just love helping people so they could move on with life and they could become better versions of themselves.
Okay, great. Listen, that was we appreciate you. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
I know that, at the top of this webinar we talked about formerly incarcerated people and getting the services, but we know that this issue of digital inclusion, digital equity encompasses, entire community, encompasses, disenfranchised and marginalized communities, and you represent that community. And in fact, my previous conversation, you talked about some of the work you have been doing. You've been involved in Fortune's digital equity program, and you've been working with formerly incarcerated people in the program. And so I guess the two
Yes,
questions I'm going to pose to you kind of speak to that. And so I want to ask you two questions, Minerva, if we can. Um,
yes.
what challenges have you noticed among formerly incarcerated people when you're helping them build their digital life skills?
Many challenges. I feel like nowadays kids know more of technology than people that are coming out of incarceration. Um, a lot of people don't even know where the words are, like in a keyboard. They don't know how to even open a camera and scan the QR code like they have mentioned before. They they don't know how to create an email. A lot of people do need assistance. A lot of people cannot learn just by watching or reading something that's going to walk them through it. I feel like a lot of people grow better and learn faster when they have assistance like provided to them kind of one-on-one, and just like a lot of teachers here also, they do a lot of powerful PowerPoints where it teaches them and walks them through a lot of things, and they take the time and just like walk them through every step by step. And
Hmm.
I have seen a lot of people learn at a, at a better pace, and they are able to do a lot of things on their own now with the assistance of others.
Hmm. Thank you, Minerva. So I guess my next question for you is that you know, while in the digital equity program, have you seen growth? Like, have you actually seen, people that you were in the program with and they started out and they were a little, their skills weren't that great, and over time they developed these skills, and then like if you have seen that, did you notice, some change in how they were able to perform and how they felt about themselves and their attitudes and,
Yeah.
coming to the program?
Yes, for sure. A lot of people's self-esteems become better. They actually are able to go out and look for a job on their own and put in an application, create emails. They're actually able to help other people with what they learn as well, which I love to see that because, some people will just kind of like want to give up, like this is just too much, this is too hard. But, when they stick through it, they just love helping and providing what they know to other people. So,
Thank you.
and I have seen a lot of growth. I've seen people from the digital equity class here start working like here after they learn the basics of a computer. Now they work at Fortune as well.
Wow, it's
Yes,
amazing,
I love
amazing.
that.
So Fortune's doing good work.
Yes, for sure.
At work. So thank you, Minerva. Thank you for providing that insight. I think we've had a lot of great insight from our panelists. And at this point, I have a few questions. I actually want to open it up to the audience. I think we already have a few questions in the chat. I'd like to give our audience some questions. I mean, answer some of their questions, and then I'll kind of lob out some questions to the audience as well. Um, so I guess you know, one question was posed is that like what does Fortune do for people coming home, and what kind of services do they provide in reference to digital equity? As I said at the top of the webinar, maybe I'll speak a little fast, but I'll kind of remind people. So Fortune has a digital equity program, and we provide participants with technical support, knowledge, and resources. We connect them to services, and we give them opportunities, almost immediate opportunities, to use those digital literacy skills. And so that's one thing that Fortune does. We also have another question. Someone in the audience, I think it was Mr. Wilfredo. Mr. Wilfredo says, why has Fortune not partnered with Phase 3 portion of DOC services, pre-release services in respect to digital literacy? I think that's a good question. I don't have the answer for that, but I know that there've been some conversations. I do think we're working on that, but I can't give you a concrete answer right now. And that's something for us to go back and discuss. So thank you for that question, Mr. Wilfredo. Thank you. Um, I also have additional questions for the audience and or the panelists. I know throughout this webinar, I pose specific questions to the panelists concerning digital life skills. But I think with that being said, I don't have all the answers concerning that. And I think I would like to ask everyone, um, like, or just to the panelists at this point, like we named a few things, like, but are there any other digital life skills that you think that we didn't speak about that you associate with digital life skills?
Um, One program that really needs to be implemented, especially like for men and women coming home, is just the banking system. Simple things like how to open an account. How to check your credit. How to reach out to the Experian and transaction. The various credit companies to improve your credit, because that's something that's important if you really want to build a solid foundation towards a successful future. good credit, and knowing how to use the banking system is important, because the days are gone where you could just take your money, put it in a paper bag, and stash it under the mattress and all that and anything. So you really, what I mean, in order to really make that transition, successful, the basic things like how to use a credit card, how to open a bank account, what a secured card is, what a debit card is, and FICA, how to improve your credit score, things like that. Because it's those little bit I'm just learning, what I mean, like what to do in terms of credit wise, and my credit history's been on the shelf for a major long time. You know what I mean? So trying to get that back, I'm still learning. But that's one class that I really think we should, know that should be a focus. The banking system, and how to build good credit, things like that.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you mentioned that, Henry, because actually at the top of the program we did mention banking, but we didn't on it too much. And I'm glad you did elaborate on it because that's a skill, being able to manage one's finances, right, in the economy. That's important to live a productive life and to be stable in society. You also mentioned credit score, having credit. For people that serve substantial amount of time, they may not have known or had a chance or had the experience in using credit to navigate the world and purchase things and get life in order. So that's definitely uh, necessary. Like having credit in this world is how most people in the world are able to success is using credit. So I think that's very, very important. So you definitely highlight something that's worth talking about, Mr. Henry. Definitely. Um, Also have another question. This is for our panel as well. Um, have you met someone who felt like getting digital training wasn't like? Have you ever met someone who felt like they didn't need I say workforce development because they wasn't going back to work. And the reason why I say that is because at the top of this program, we made a we distinguished between this idea of workforce development and this idea of digital life skill training. And we know that n- everyone, not everyone's going to be working. Some people come home from prison and they're not going back into the workforce. Some of them are at the age of retirement, and so they may not be looking for employment. And in that respect, this notion of digital life skills becomes that much more important because they're not going to be going into the workforce, but they definitely need to access banking, right? Mr. Henry? They need to do certain things in life, and so getting their credit together. And so I just have a question for you, Mr. Henry. I guess directly to you. Have you ever met someone who didn't feel like they needed to get their workforce skills or their digital skills together because they weren't going back into the workforce?
Well, I'll speak on that. Right now, I'm living in a halfway house in the Bronx. No, it's only temporary. God has big plans in store for me, and I know this is a process. But at this halfway house, I'm one of the youngest guys there, and I'm 52 years old. So I mean, so it's basically an older population, and it's all males. It's not co-ed. It's all males. Uh, what I discovered of being there is that a lot of our older brothers have given up on trying to make a good transition into the digital world. I mean, I know that there's guys there that refuse to learn how to send emails. There's guys there that just refuse to learn Google or to learn Microsoft, how to write a document, how to write a digital letter to their grandchildren. The littlest things. I try to work with a couple of brothers there and try to inspire them. Like, your grandchildren, they grow up in this digital world. You know what I mean? You want to be able to communicate with them. You want to be able to relate to them. You know what I mean? And stuff that they're used to. And it's sad to say that, but a lot of our older brothers, I don't know about the women, because like I said, this is this is an all guy facility, an all male facility, but a lot of our older brothers have just pretty much given up on. I don't know. I won't say whether they feel like they need it or not, but they've gotten to the point where they're just so frustrated and just trying to learn everything and catch up that they're just like, if I need to send a email to somebody, I'll catch me a pigeon and put a note on it, and then it's on fly
Yeah,
off
yeah,
the roof. Like, that's how bad it's gotten. You know what I mean? That's just from
yeah.
my experience.
So with that being said, Leah, do you have any questions concerning this? This idea of older people coming home for prison and
Absolutely. Well, we all know that prison is a aging population, right? You go in
yeah.
one age and you come out the next. And when you serve a substantial amount of time, right, behind the walls, when you come out, I've seen that as well, Henry. And it's like people get stuck, right? And it's like becoming complacent. You know, they think because they have their freedom that that's enough. And, you know, it's disheartening because, you know, it's like I said, it's not enough resources for women. But what, you know, that's why mentoring, right, that paying it forward type of mentality is very important because, you know, like my boss always says, each one reach one, each one teach one, right? So you have to like kind of be there and make ourselves available. In a lot of our marginalized communities, the resources are not like nobody's gonna come knock on your door and say we're here to help. So we have to kind of like be aware, right, and be present beyond just being physically present of to our surroundings. Just like you said, Henry, you see it right in the halfway house, and you're very aware of what's going on, and you want to help. But then again, you're just one person. So we have. That's why it's so important for these resources to be available in our communities, right? Not just available because they could be available in out of state, but we need it in our communities because this is something that is happening, and people do give up. Right? People figure that, oh, they're at an age where these skills are not necessary. But like you said, if you have grandchildren, right? First of all, as you get older, we have more medical needs, right? So navigating the medical system, now you need to have digital life skills because they tell you, oh, you got an online portal, you got to make appointments online. So regardless of what, they still need it. And I think that if nothing else, they need it for medical benefits, right? Healthcare, because as we get older, we have increasing health needs.
Great. Thank you for providing that insight, Leah. So I guess, I think we provided a great deal of insight concerning this topic. I know prior to this question, someone asked a question from the audience concerning what programs does Fortune provide in respect to digital these skills, digital literacy training, and I gave a brief snippet response. But I also think that one of our panelists, Minerva, who actually is participating in that program, can actually provide a little bit more insight to our audience concerning that question, if it is still a question. Minerva?
Yes. So they'll start by walking you through turning on the computer, logging on into the computer, showing you about the keyboard, the parts of the computer so you could kind of understand how it works. They walk you through starting an email. They show you how Google works, how Google Map works, how to create PowerPoint, how to even write like a document, they walk you through a lot of things that you could do, how to, I think I already mentioned create the email. They show you like icons, what is an icon, what it does, how to create shortcuts. Honestly, they walk you through a lot through a computer. They even have like a thing where it's like something on Fortune Society website where they kind of provide, it's kind of like a game, and they write like a whole sentence, and you have to use the keyboard to retype what it says on the sentence, and you just keep doing it and doing it until you get used to where the letters are. That's helpful to a lot of people that I've been in class with. And yeah, they walk you through a lot, and every week they come up with something new to teach you.
Thank you, Minerva, for providing that was. So um so we've said a lot during this webinar. I think we covered a lot of ground. And I think that at the end of the day, we learned several things here. We learned that, like, this is a serious problem. First of all, I want to say, before I get into that, I want to thank everyone for participating in today's webinar. I think we learned a lot here today. I think we shed a light on the fact that the lack of digital skills among formerly incarcerated people is a real issue. We learned that this problem is multifaceted. We also learned that there are some viable solutions to this problem. And I think that we learned that the power resides in us. We not only need to speak about it, but we need to become active. And with these efforts, we can address these issues. Furthermore, I think we learned that this is in society's best interest. Some of our panelists have talked about how, formerly incarcerated people being digitally adequate are able to contribute to the economy. They're able to reduce rates of recidivism and dissidence and desistance, excuse me, and several other things. I think this is a serious issue, And I'm glad we've been able to have this forum to speak about this. And I'm looking forward to having more conversations concerning on digital equity. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. And if we have any further questions, we're going to close the webinar out. Again, I thank everyone for participating. I would like to thank all our panelists, Henry Cassie, Minerva, LaRon, Leah, Senator Simiman Vanel, and everyone who played a part in producing this webinar, as well as the IT department, our digital equity program, the David Rothenberg Center for Public Policy, and the DI committee. Thank you all. You have a great day and bless.